So.
Yeah, you're right about that, especially at the local level. I mean, the more you have, the better accessibility. Any other questions from members of the?
Mr. Chairman, one final point on that issue of call routing, and again, the focus on 911 call routing. We're informed by our federal team that there is a planned FCC proceeding on wireless 911 call routing expected later this year. I would fully expect California's stakeholders to play an important part in that comment cycle. And again, I think it shows the commitment, as Chairman Wheeler has indicated and as the wireless industry indicates here today, that we are interested in collaboratively and cooperatively working with public safety here in California and elsewhere to make sure the system is as good as it possibly can be.
Correct, you're right about that, Peter. So we got to make sure that OES and CAMS is all on board. We're all at the table together, having discussions how we should move forward. So I want to thank you very much for your presentation. And with that, we'll move on to our next panel. Okay. So our panel 3 introduction. Panel 3 consists of representatives of public safety, answering points, and responding agencies that are sent by the 911 system to render aid to callers. And with that, we're looking Dan Birch, Administrator, EMS Service Administrator of Associations from San Joaquin County. We also have California State Sheriff's Association, James M. Mealy, Sheriff of Tuolumne County, I believe, Tuolumne. California Police Chief Association, David Wilson, Assistant Chief, Ventura Police Department. California Fire Chiefs, Chuck Burden, Consultant. California Highway Patrol, Rich Desmond, Captain, CHP, Legislative Representative, Chief Scott Howland, Chief Communication Support. So members, if we can kind of limit our talking points about 5 minutes as we're kind of going over our time frame. So Dan, you can go ahead and start.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to speak today. I'd like to start first by just acknowledging that the jobs that our public safety dispatchers do on a day in and day out basis, and that they're doing the best job that they can with the resources that we allow them or we provide for them to do their jobs. And then I think it's incumbent upon us as policymakers and as providers and supervisors of services to provide them with the best tools that we possibly can. The Emergency Medical Services Administrators Association of California supports the efforts of this committee and the legislature and others to improve the accuracy of 911 call routing, of automatic identifying information for callers. To put a personal face on this, when, especially in medical emergencies, when callers are reaching out to 911, they're calling it sometimes at their most vulnerable moments, either for themselves or for their loved ones. Just last week, in our system in San Joaquin County in Stockton, an elderly woman was calling on behalf of her husband who had a heart attack. And she was confused on calling. And she was calling from a landline telephone. But one of the first jobs of every public safety dispatcher is to confirm a location. That particular caller provided an inaccurate location, opposite of what was coming through on her automatic address location on her wire enhanced 911 phone call. Because of that, and because of all of the inaccuracies that surround wireless 911 and VoIP and other technologies, the dispatcher made the decision to follow what the confused elderly woman provided her as an address and use that to dispatch resources, which was the wrong location. But that's the inaccuracy of the wireless 911 system has brought in doubt into even what was solid technology that we know works, because we ask callers to confirm where they are, and we use what they tell us to base responses on. So with that, I'll hand it over to my other colleagues to speak, and thank you.
Thank you. Go with James.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
I would agree with just what was said, and just to put a point of maybe reference for myself, but also for the committee here is some 30 years ago when I was a young deputy, and I am the expert, I am the professional, I rolled upon an accident in a patrol car, not knowing where my location was, because that was one of the things that in the training program we did not go over. We're talking almost 30 years ago. So even as a professional, how can it, when I in a very stressful, when there is an infant who needs medical aid, can't give the location. It's nice for us to say we need to inform the public and to let the public know that they need to give us that location. But one who has actually lived it, not only in a medical but also in a critical incident when gunfire is being shot at you, it is very difficult. It's very stressful to give that location. It is incumbent upon us as the policymakers, as the legislator, and the manufacturers to get this technology so that we are able to get this location. We do not, when we have one individual that is that we could have saved and we lose that one individual, that is unacceptable. And I think that all of us that are sitting at this table will agree with that. That is unacceptable. We can no longer go and say this person or this industry or this group or these individuals need to come up with a solution. It cannot be that way. What needs to happen is that we need to come together. We need to come and have solutions and have dialogue that will come with a solution. Money is a very important part, but the 911 committee is only a branch of that. We cannot put and say, 911 committee, you need to come up with these solutions. We need to have our vendors, the manufacturers, local law enforcement, state, and the federal folks come together and come with the solution on this huge, huge problem, because the public demands this, and we, as public safety, deserve or have an obligation to fulfill that desire and that need.
Thank you. Yep. With that, we have David Wilson.
Yes, good morning or good afternoon now. We appreciate your hard work in bringing this forward. It's really a shame that we even have to be here today. All of us in a 911 business and emergency responders have tragic stories to share over this issue. Our goal is to deliver quick, efficient emergency services, and this gets in the way of that. We've heard a lot of testimony today, and we need to work hard with the carriers and the FCC to come up with some location accuracy improvements. But until then, we know that there's technology, and we confirmed it 2 days ago in a meeting that's available today that we can turn on to help us route calls to the most proper agency. We're not always going to get it right, but we can optimize that technology to change many of the sectors to go to the right PSAP. If the PSAP, and we've talked about if we do implement that technology, it could take some time to review the whole entire state. But what tools that gives each PSAP is they can analyze that data on their own and make changes as they see fit. Being a 911 dispatcher is probably one of the most difficult jobs in emergency services today. And now what they're doing is having to spend a lot of time just trying to find people. Yeah. And it's very, very frustrating for the first responders and the dispatchers within the centers to try to do that. So the California Police Chiefs will work with you to get this improved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Chuck.
Good afternoon. My name is Chuck Burdan. I'm a 40-year veteran of public safety dispatching, and I'm here today representing the California Fire Chiefs Association. They're the first responders in all fire and EMS emergencies, so this is a very critical issue for them. The California Fire Chiefs Association believes that the improvement of wireless 911 location accuracy is the top of the list of upgrades to the 911 system in California. The terms wireless routing, location accuracy, and next generation 911 routing are frequently used interchangeably when in fact they are separate and distinct items. Wireless routing currently sends wireless 911 calls to a PSAP that has been pre-assigned to a cell sector or even a cell tower. Even if multiple agencies are located within a geographic area that the cell sector covers, only one PSAP can be assigned to that cell sector. Location accuracy has more to do with the fact that all wireless 911 calls are delivered with either phase 1, the location of the tower, or phase 2, the approximate location of the caller based on a GPS or triangulation method. There are two issues with location accuracy. Wireless carriers currently are not providing Phase 2 information with the initial call in a timely manner. This means that the call will be routed based on the location of the cell tower, not the location of the caller, and increases the risk of misroute. Phase 2 location information provides the location of the caller, but even that has an uncertainty factor that can be 30 feet or 3 miles and does not indicate altitude. In dense population areas or for high-rise buildings, this is not going to provide enough information for responders to locate victims quickly. The use of location-based routing under next-generation 911 technology is currently being developed, but in practical terms, it is several years away from being implemented on a statewide basis. It is the recommendation of the California Fire Chiefs Association that the following steps be taken to address wireless location routing and accuracy. First, to purchase currently available technology that could enhance the decision-making process for cell sector routing. This should include user-friendly reports that can be generated by 911 personnel from their own workplace, thus allowing for routing recommendations based on objective data. Second, in addition to the software indicated above, there needs to be training and personnel who will coordinate this process statewide. The 911 branch may need additional resources to make this happen. Thirdly, quality assurance procedures need to be put into place to ensure the cellular carriers report new cell towers and cell sector modifications in a timely manner, and the sectors are tested to ensure correct routing. And finally, encourage the FCC to shorten their timeline for wireless location routing. But all of this takes funding, and the state emergency telephone number account is declining at such a rate, as Ms. Wong said, and by 2017 will require more money just to maintain our existing network than we will get in revenues, and there is no fund balance to draw from. Legislation needs to be developed that will provide revenues into the state emergency telephone number account, sufficient not only to continue maintaining the current analog equipment, but provide funding for the infrastructure of next generation 911. I want to thank the committee for their time and attention to this critical issue of public safety, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. For any questions, we'll move forward for representative from the Highway Patrol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Richard Desmond. I'm the CHP's legislative representative, and I certainly thank you for allowing us the opportunity to discuss this important issue. Obviously, the Highway Patrol has a very large role in the state's wireless 911 system. And I appreciate the testimony from Ms. Leong and others who have related tragedies that they have a personal connection with. We are equally as horrified as these tragedies and are doing everything we can to remedy them and make sure they don't happen again. Ensuring someone receives the help they need in an emergency is the most important priority for the Highway Patrol. We're limited, obviously, with the location accuracy technology limitations. We're limited with our ability sometimes to transfer things to local PSAPs based on how sectors are aligned and other technological issues that Chief Howland will get into in a few moments here. And we're also limited by human error, and errors do occur. Unfortunately, that does happen. Before I turn it over to Chief Howland, who actually serves as the CHP's representative on the state's 911 Advisory Board and is the chief over our Information and Management Division, I would just like to give a quick thumbnail sketch of our own kind of structure when it comes to acting as a PSAP. We actually have 25 PSAPs. We call them communication centers in the Highway Patrol. They are throughout the state. They support our statewide operations. As a statewide law enforcement agency, we have about 7,500 uniformed personnel and 103 field offices throughout the state. So these PSAPs support our own folks. They obviously support the local allied agencies who we dispatch for. You've heard mentioned several times today that the CHP is the PSAP of last resort, or the 911 wireless call taker of last resort. And that's actually codified in Public Utilities Code section 2892. And Chief Howland will go over the criteria that is involved, or the evaluation that's involved in transferring those responsibilities over to a local PSAP. In our 25 communication centers in 2014, we answered 7.4 million wireless 911 calls. So obviously it's a very large responsibility for us. There's a standard that's been established for answering 911 calls, and I think you're going to have a representative on your next panel. You've heard the acronym NENA. That's the National Emergency Number Association. It's widely recognized in the 911 community for the standards that they have set, that we answer 90% of 911 calls within 10 seconds, 95% of the calls within 20 seconds. I'm very proud that the Highway Patrol has met those standards. We meet those standards, met them in 2014. Another feature of our communication centers that I'd like to relay is that not only are they post-certified, we recently received accreditation from the Commission on the Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. Our communication center specifically received this accreditation. CALEA is the acronym for that organization, and what it's responsible for is setting the best standards for law enforcement throughout the nation, and our communication centers has recently received that accreditation. We're certainly proud of the role of our public safety dispatchers. We certainly recognize the limitations of the system and appreciate the opportunity to discuss this with you today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Howland for more detailed information.